Okay. And there we go. I have an uncooperative mouse apparently. All right. So I'm going to talk about views and templates together today, but I do want to make sure everyone understands the difference between the two things. So I'll quickly clarify for anyone who's not clear what the difference between views and templates are. But for the purpose of our discussion today, we're going to consider them to be very tightly tied together, because the reality is that in order to set up a view, it's always associated with a template, and they really are tightly tied to one another. So we'll discuss them as a unit today, and then any individual questions we have about views specifically or templates specifically, we can go into detail on those. What I'm not addressing today is security. So anything to do with user types or user management, access control, things like that will all be covered in the next session, which is on security. So although there's a couple of places where I hint at security around views, the majority of discussion of security and certainly anything to do with user types all happens in a different session. So we're limiting it to views and templates today. And if anyone does require any clarification of where that line is, I can certainly give it. Okay. So the view and template system has actually been around since our last redevelopment, which was in 2003. What I think some people aren't aware of is that initially the view and template system really only worked for staff, and the idea of a public view and template system, which is so fundamental to the way people do their work now, that didn't come around until at least it was maybe in the first year or so that we actually put in the ability to have multiple public views. Our initial and that wasn't even in the specs. So views and templates are sort of a happy happenstance that I decided to put into the software when we did the last redevelopment. It wasn't one of the requirements that was asked of me, and there were no specs for it, no details about what to do. So we just got lucky that these features were put in, because they've certainly become a really important part of how people use our software today. We did have in mind when we put them in place the idea that people would create specialized data collections where they would be able to select specific records, fields, types of searches, and a look and feel for a specific purpose, whether that be for clients, so people who are other than your data managers and INR staff who are accessing it, or your various types of staff, so understanding the differentiation between your data managers and those who perform your INR. So all of those different needs were the attempt to address through the view and template system. So many of our members at this point rely very, very heavily on the view and template system to bring in revenue for their agencies. So it's become a really critical component for how some of our members are able to survive and thrive. It also allows them to partner with other community organizations to leverage both, not just the software itself, but all of the data that our members keep in order to work together with these other organizations to provide services at low cost, and to also subsidize to a degree the data management effort that has to go on for a lot of these records, where you're not then duplicating effort, where another organization would have to keep their own copies of records or even develop their own software to be able to store, search, and display this information. So I said I would try and differentiate between views and templates. I'll do that now. The view is about controlling the functionality of the software and the data that's available, and to a certain degree what you can do with it. So when you set up a view, you define which records are going to be in that view, what types of searches are going to be available, what fields are available for each type of access, so which fields are available for viewing on your details page, which fields are available on your feedback page, your update form, your mail form, and so on. Whereas your template controls strictly the design, the colors, certain aspects of the menu and styles. Certain aspects of the menu are also with the view, so that's a fine line there. But the template is really about what the site looks like as opposed to the view, which really is about what is the content that's available. Now, the challenge that we have with our view and template system is, on one hand, the desire to create something that's very customizable, because people have both internal needs and client requests to have it tweaked exactly how they want it to be. But we still need to be able to create something reasonable without overwhelming those that have no expertise. So the reality is we have users who have absolutely no design skills, very little technical skill, sometimes very little basic training in the software itself. They really have no idea how to do this type of customization. They just want it to be able to work without them having to have any kind of technical understanding or in-house design expertise. So we have very different needs there, and we have to find a way to address both of them, and that is a huge challenge for us. The evolution of the view and template system is actually a major component of this project. It was part of our application to the Ontario Trillium Foundation because we did recognize it as a fundamental need of our members, especially to enable them to develop those community partnerships and bring in revenue to make them more sustainable. So we will be doing a lot of focus on improving our user interface, improving the view and template system to help people make their sites more customizable, more visually appealing, and so on, because it is recognized as a major part of what our members need, in particular what our members need in order to be sustainable and to grow in the future. It's pretty frequent that we make changes to the view system. In other words, what is the content and the functionality in a particular portal or view that I create. That happens with pretty much every release. We have some kind of a change to views, whether that be a security change, an additional customization, and so on. That happens pretty regularly. But the default template system, or the template system, and especially the default template, so the one that you get if you have no design skill, has changed very little over the years. We really have made very, very few changes to our styles, our default designs, and really even the customization system for those that do have design skills. It really has not evolved very much over the last almost 8 years. And the lack of an attractive default design or the lack of customization options is the #1 complaint we receive about CIOC, especially by new members. When people come into CIOC and they see the default, they are very unhappy, and often if they don't have any in-house design skill, they're really at a loss as to how the software looks the way they would like it to look, to make it look professional. There's rarely complaint, especially by new members, about what CIOC can do, the fields it has, the features, the search capabilities. We get very positive feedback on all of those in general. It's about why is it so ugly. So this is a really serious issue, even though you would think it might not be. This is a really serious issue for our members. So that is why it's such a major component of the project. And as I say, there's the two needs. There's the, I want it completely customized exactly the way that my client or my ED or whoever wants it. It has to be a very particular way, and some people have the in-house design staff to do that, and the software doesn't necessarily let them do it as far as they want. And then we have the other end of people who just don't have that in-house expertise. They don't even know who to go to as an external vendor to maybe assist them in setting that up. So we have to address both of those things. So the first round of changes for this project and the next release, it covers some of these changes that we're talking about for the project. And this next release focuses on creating more and better options for the default design template and search page layouts. So if we look at the old style, this is CIOC's default appearance. If you have no ability to do your own design, this is what you get, basically. So the major complaint here is it's very boxy, it's not very attractive. Even if you add a logo, it's just lumped in the corner. It's not very professional looking. And if you have no in-house design expertise, this is all you get. Obviously, we do have the ability to have somewhat better templates if you do have some design training. So not that this is a beautiful template, but the idea is you can at least improve the header and the footer, the layout a little bit. I'll do, right, so we do have members who have used some of the built-in tools to make quite significant improvements to that default display so that they can make choices about the font, the colors, a little bit of layout choice, design their own menus, and so on, if they have the in-house expertise to do that. But that default template, that really ugly default template, is part of what we're really trying to improve. So, to that end, there's a few things that we've got for the next release. So what you see here is a very rough, still in progress example of what one of the new default templates would look like. And I say one of because this release will come with 3. So instead of having a single default template, there will now be 3 default templates, meaning where the menu design is, the footer design is. And in addition, we'll have 2 different search displays for each module of the software. So one being similar but less ugly to the old layout of having them one after the other, like we do here. And the other being what you see here, which is a tabbed layout to allow you to access the different searches all from one page. This does require JavaScript for anyone who decides they want to implement this kind of a model. I want to point out a few other things that we've added in terms of customization. And again, this is a default template, so this is one that would be built in if you have no design skill. It's replacing this. So you still will have the ability to create something completely custom as you have in the past. And in fact, your custom templates will have more options than they did in the past in terms of layout because you'll have more control over some of the elements on the page than you used to. But for those using a default template, this is one of what will be 3 options for your headers and footers, and one of what will be 2 options for your search page layout. There's a question. I'm just going to open it up here. Sharon is asking, will we be able to implement some of these new template options and designs into our existing templates? So what will happen is when your software is upgraded, everybody's existing design templates, if they use a default one, which in your case, Sharon, you have a custom one. So if you have a default one, it will be converted to one of the new defaults, the one that looks closest to the existing model. You will be able to switch your design to a different model. So let's say you're using something very close to this search layout here, the boxy one, and you want to switch to a tabbed. You would be able to go into your setup and switch it to a different layout. Okay? If you have a custom one, that will also be converted over to the new system, but it will remain a custom template. So we'll do what's necessary to translate it into the new system, but it will remain a custom template. So it would be the same kinds of customizations that you have now. You would be in control of the HTML layout of the design template. And keeping in mind that the idea of a search page template is brand new, so no one will have an existing search template layout. They all have to use the default one. So everyone will get initially converted to using the new version of this boxy model. And if you want to switch over to, say, using the tabbed method instead, then you would go into your setup and change that. I can't show you any of the setup stuff yet because it isn't ready to, it's not ready for prime time and won't be until the end of this month. So when that time comes, you'll be able to see a little bit about how that setup process works. But basically, you can go in and change your templates or create new templates just as you always have. So if you want to modify, Sharon, in your case, if you want to keep your custom template for the the header and the footer, and you just want to change your search area, you would go in and just switch to the new search form potentially, and leave the rest of your custom header and footer in place, if that's what you wanted to do. So back to some of the new layout options. This is a logged-in view, so there's a few things I want to point out. I'm going to actually log into one of these systems so I can compare apples to apples here. So I'm going to go to a logged-in page here so I can just show. Right here we have this thing called a quick links bar. You'll see that that's gone in the new model. Instead, we have what is called a sidebar here, which has many of the aspects of the quick links bar. It has which view you're working in, a quick link to feedback, a quick link to add record, your account information. So if I clicked on that, it would bring up, well, I'm not in the right place, but if I clicked on that, it would bring up the My Account information, a logout link, page help link, all the kinds of things that were formerly in the quick links bar. The location of this sidebar is customizable in the template. So we actually have two other templates for which the location is different. In one of them, it's embedded sort of in this area, and in another one, it's actually at the bottom. So just to give you an idea that this isn't fixed, this is now part of the template, meaning if you create a custom template, you will now be able to control the location of that sidebar and place it as you wish in the context of your template, which is a huge change from what we've had in the past. Another new element we've added is the idea of a menu in the header. So again, I'll give an example here of, let's see if I can get to a very plain view here. I think I have nothing plain. There we go. Okay, so here we have a very plain view of sort of a basic template here. And if I'm logged out, okay, and I go to another page, I get this new search button. So instead of having the idea of just the new search button here, which we used to have in the old system, now on every header bar here, we're going to have the links to search, advanced search if I'm logged in and can use advanced search. And then I can actually do my own links. So you'll be able to add your own items to this menu. And again, if you had a different layout, it would look different. So we have other, of the other layouts we have, they don't all look like this. The idea, though, is you have a couple of default things that are added to your menu here, and then you have the ability to add more links that are custom to what you want. So if we were back to the info, so take this as an example where they have one linking to, they've added a link to the taxonomy search here, they've added a contact us page, they've written their own help page, and they want one to have the login link. So you would be able to add those types of things to your menu within the setup without having to have any HTML knowledge at all. You would just go into the interface and say, I want a link to this page, and this is the text I want for my link, and it would automatically add it to your menu for you without you having to have any HTML or design knowledge. So that's another element. We've added, but we've always had the ability to have some text on the left-hand menu, but we've now added the ability for you to add your own custom text or HTML in a right-hand menu, as you see here. So this eliminates the constant issue of the big floating menu here with nothing. So you can have not only a right menu if you want one, but you can actually have a left menu now as well and put whatever content you want on the left to really balance out your site and provide more content. Another element we've added is an alert box. So optionally, you'll have the ability to add an alert to your view. so that anyone working in that view would see that alert. So if there was something you needed to notify your staff of that was a temporary alert, you wanted them to pay attention, you could add that temporary alert. It will be in a nice bold color, sticking out at the top of their menu so that they can see that they need to pay attention to it. When the alert is done, you can take it away. You can do the same for the public. Let's say you have a temporary public survey that you want them to fill out. You can add it temporarily and then take it away when you're done. In addition, this menu here, which normally is only there for staff, you will actually be able to add individual menu items to this menu as well. So besides the text that you've always been able to add, I don't know if we have a good example of it.
If you go to my release version.
Yeah, I don't I think most people know that you can add text to your menu normally, but what we're doing here is actually allowing you to add new menu items as well, both for public and for staff, in the same way that we're allowing you to add new menu items to the top. And finally, you'll be able to add menu items to the footer automatically in a default template, which is very different from the mode we have now. And that's on top of your existing ability to have other kinds of footer text available. So right now, if you can write your own HTML, you can add content to your footer. But this allows people to have, pre-formatted menu items that you can add, even if you don't have any HTML knowledge at all. So those are some of the basic components that we've added in. And again, that there's also the customization of the search page layout where we'll have predefined formats. And probably one of the biggest things we've changed here is if you don't like one of our predefined layouts that we'll be providing you with, you will have the ability to create your own custom search page layout. So if you have a really specialized portal and they want some kind of search that's very different from what we normally do, an example might be you want them to start by clicking on a region or something, click a region in a map and it sort of selects that region and then enter a keyword or whatever the heck you need really for your search page layout that's different from what we normally do. You'll have the ability to create your own custom thing and automatically insert some of the elements that CIOC generates, like your quick list, all your various form fields and so on. It would automatically put those in placeholders that you had in your template. So that's an extremely brief overview of what we're looking at for the next release. This is a first pass. So we're trying to give you a taste of what's possible and sort of doing our best to get a first draft of the new setup areas and so on, understanding that this is going to require further revision. We know that. There's a limit to what we could tackle the first go-round. This is already a huge amount of work, a huge amount of changes to put in place. So we do anticipate there will be a need for further changes. We do anticipate we'll need to work on the setup interface to make it more user-friendly or give more options and so on. We do anticipate that there might be a request for more built-in templates that you can just use as is without having to develop your own, or tweaks to the built-in templates that we create. So again, just a first pass, and this is just a sample to show you some of the new elements that are available. If you have any questions on that, I'll try and come back to them at the end, but as I say, this is just sort of a draft in progress to give you a hint of what's coming. One of the things in the setup area that's going to be critical is having a basic and advanced setup mode so that we can meet the needs of both kinds of users that we have. So those people that do have that expert background, that technical skill to really customize their own layouts and designs, we want people to have that ability, but for the average user, that's ridiculously overwhelming. It's too many setup options, it's too complicated, and so we really need a basic setup mode for our users with no technical skill, with with little training, no design background, to be able to put together something reasonable without being overwhelmed. So the way we're approaching this is by having a basic setup mode and an advanced setup mode, so that we can really meet the needs of both types of users. Okay, so I already talked a bit about, the changes for the next release are just step one. So we don't expect it to end there. It's a beginning point for us. So we certainly can't meet every need or request, or we won't necessarily have the most beautiful, perfect templates the first go round. But it's a significant advance over where we have been, and hopefully it's a good first step, and we can get lots of feedback from our members about where we need to go from there to bring it all the way to where people need. So in addition to what we're already doing for this release, we have a little bit of a wish list, and of course we'd like to hear from you about what else we need to consider. But I'll go over the list that we already have, the possible list that we already have, and then we can open it up for comments. So these are some of the things that we need to consider. So they're not necessarily things that are going to happen, but things we need to think about. One is the ability to create a small number of pages in the software with customizable content for those that don't have a website to host that content. Some of our members or some of their community partners either they don't have their own website, or they don't have a website particularly for that project and really don't have the capacity to effectively host the additional content that they want for their viewer portal. And the ability to even have 1 to 3 small pages of content, like a contact us, about our project, disclaimer, whatever it may be, specific to that viewer portal that you're putting together, would be a humongous benefit for those cases. So either for those members who just, they really don't have their own website other than their CIOC site, or they have a client who doesn't really have a site either for their organization or potentially for that specific project for which they're building a portal, and they want to be able to put a bit of content in. So the idea here would be that with some limitation, because we have to keep this reasonable, we're not a web hosting company, with some reasonable limitation, that you would be able to create some custom content pages where it would automatically put the menus and design and layout, basic layout elements of a CIOC page in, and allow you to provide the content of that page, which you could then link to as a menu item here, or a menu item here, or in the bottom, or wherever it is you need it, such as, I need a contact us page. So you can then create a custom page that tells the people on that site how to contact any of the many agencies that may be participating in your database. So you can list the different agencies and all of their basic contact information, email, phone number, address, and so on, without having to host that on an external site, and so on. So that's the idea there. And to go along with that, for anyone doing anything custom, meaning not the built-in templates that I was just talking about, but a truly custom site, right now you have to have the ability to host all of the files for that custom template somewhere. Images, style sheets, potentially JavaScript files, and so on, that support the design that you put together. This particularly becomes a problem for logged-in views, where when you go to log in, you may want to do the secure login, which requires using a CIOC.ca name. And unless your images are hosted on that secure site, your web browser is likely to yell at you for what it would call a mixed content page, meaning some of the content on your page is secure and some of it's not secure. And that can really frighten people when they come to what they think is a secure site, and their browser is giving them warnings about, some of the content on this page is insecure, and it might just be a style sheet, and the fact that it's insecure is completely irrelevant. But it's enough to make people nervous, and not confident in the security of the page and think that something's going on. So having the ability to, again, on a limited basis, host some of the content for these templates has a number of potential benefits for people who do not have a website to host it themselves, or for those that are doing logged-in views and want to be able to offer a secure login without getting those strange browser errors. Now, again, CIOC is not a web hosting company, so this would have to be severely limited. We would have to introduce quotas. We would have to restrict the types of files that we host. It really would have to be done with limitations and with I guess a good sense of how we're going to support this effectively without causing any problems for our members in terms of speed of the site and so on. It will probably help the reliability of the sites for a lot of people whose own hosting companies for their website don't tend to be as reliable as CIOC sites. If your website goes down, all your image files, all your style sheets and so on stop working. So even if your CIOC site is fundamentally working, it's going to look terrible or be really slow because it can't get all these files from this other site. So having the ability for it to be hosted in the same place as your CIOC database means if your CIOC database is up, all your images are up and your site looks correct. So that's a huge benefit to many of our members in terms of feeling that their site is going to be reliable. I have a question, so I'm just going to check. Yeah, so Sharon has had this experience. So she definitely is one of those that supports this, and she's not alone. We do periodically get panicked, oh, my ISP is down, or my site stopped working, and it turns out there's a Bell Canada outage, and it's brought their, all of their image files and style sheets down. And really, we can't help in that situation because we don't have any control over those external hosting providers. So bringing some of that control in-house along with the rest of your database really means that the reliability is what you expect from the rest of your CIOC database. But again, it has to be done carefully, thoughtfully, because CIOC isn't a hosting provider and really can't become a full hosting provider. So, of a web hosting provider. Obviously, we're a hosting provider of your database application, but it has to be done carefully. But we do recognize that the need is there and that there's a lot of benefit that we can gain from making this available in a limited way. So we've introduced customizable layouts for the search page, but there may be other areas of the software for which we want to consider some degree of customization. Now, the huge challenge of this is in most cases we've already built a lot of customization right into the software, and so the ability to leverage both the built-in customization that CIOC provides and giving you a custom layout, it gets very, very tricky. So this has to be done really thoughtfully, and there has to be a very good argument for why a particular page is suitable for having this kind of a customizable layout built in. It's a huge amount of work to build a customizable layout system in for a page, so it certainly wouldn't be something we would do for one member who says, oh, wouldn't it be nice if I could have this over here, because it is a humongous amount of work, like weeks of work, to build in a customizable layout system, even for one page or a couple of pages. So it's not something that can be done trivially. It has to be very needed and done very thoughtfully and with an understanding of when it makes more sense to build customization options into the software instead of doing a templated, fully customizable system where people can do their own layouts. All right. We expect that we're going to get further requests for usability improvements or further customization options of the configuration pages for templates that we're working on. So although we're doing this basic and advanced mode to try and make it simple for those non-techie users, we still are introducing some very complex ideas and complex setup options in order to give this level of customization to you. And so we do expect that we'll be getting some feedback from our members about, you know, what's working, what's not, what's difficult, and it's going to be a process to try and come up with a really good balance of, you know, what we're doing for our basic users and what we're doing for our advanced users. And for those advanced users that we do have, we do expect further requests for customization options beyond what we've already put in place. Even though we've put a huge number of customization options in place that weren't there before, that in a way just whets the appetite for more customization options. So if I can customize this, why can't I customize this too? So that's going to be an ongoing process that we know. But we really have put in a huge number of things as a first start. So even just to get a handle on all of the customization we've already done, I think we'll keep people busy for a while, and then we can look at what more can we do. And certainly Chris and I already have some ideas of further customization that people might be requesting, but we'll start with what we've got. This is a big one, and one that's going to come up more and more frequently, is creating better mobile-ready views and templates. So this is a tricky one. So whether you create a view and say this is a mobile view in a mobile mode, or whether you have an automatic response in the software where it's text that you're using a mobile browser and tries to adjust the software in certain ways to accommodate the fact that you're on a mobile browser, whether it automatically detects that you're in a mobile browser, or you can go into a mobile mode for picking a different template in the same view that might be more compact and work better. There's lots of ways we can consider this, but we do understand that there is quite a need now for making the software more mobile friendly. Now, interestingly, we already know that the software is quite functional on most of the major smartphones, depending on what you've set up in terms of your template and your search options and so on. But even tools like the mapping tools actually do work on all of the major smartphones we've tested. So we're not that far from being able to offer really good mobile support, but I think that putting a little effort into really giving the ideal experience for the mobile users would be of a huge benefit to the public and to our membership. So that's definitely, I think, something that needs to be on our to-do list. Although we're providing more variety of built-in templates with this next release, we do anticipate that there would be a desire for even more options. So beyond the three menus, what we're calling our traditional design template, the one that does your header and footer, beyond those and beyond the two search templates that we're going to provide, there obviously is room to provide more built-in options. And it's a wonderful investment to make built-in templates, because then not only does one person get the benefit, but every CIOC member gets the benefit of that. So what we hope is that if people come up with custom templates that really have a high benefit factor for the rest of our members, that they could potentially be shared with us and incorporated in as built-in templates. So if someone does a fantastic search page layout and everybody really loves it, that we would be able to take that design and put it into the software as a built-in template that then everyone can get access to and make local use of. So that's where we hope we're going with this in the future. And a few more. One is the ability for members to do a bit of maintenance on their own custom domain names. So frequently we have requests for, especially the community partnership portal, to have their own domain names so that it's really branded to the organization that's requested that custom portal. And in general, we strongly recommend that any public portal you create has its own domain name. This is not only more user-friendly, but it also makes your view more portable. If you merge with another member, if you change the view that that is associated, it won't change the address of your custom portal. There's all kinds of advantages to setting up a custom name for a public site that you create. So we strongly recommend that. But every aspect of that currently has to be managed by us. So anytime you need to, say, change the view associated with a custom portal, you have to contact us to change it behind the scenes. So we'd like to make at least some of that management available to our users, our members. Some of it will always have to be done by us because it is a system administration task, but some of it can be, once it's initially set up, can be put in the control of our members to be able to manage that over time. For instance, changing the view number associated with the domain name. We recently had a request to create some kind of an access list for a domain name that avoids inappropriate views from being displayed with some domain names. So at the moment, every domain name that you associate with your database has the capability of accessing any other public view that you have. So if I create a older adults view and give it a custom domain name, I technically have the ability, by specifying the view number, of accessing the early years public portal with an address that might say older adults something. So it can be confusing, cause strange search engine results and so on if that happens. Now that's less likely to happen if everyone uses custom domain names for every public view they create. But the idea with the access list is you would be able to say, okay, don't show any other views from this domain name other than this one or these ones. That's the idea behind access lists. Okay. There's some other security changes we might make around view access. A better way to see which views are public views. This gets tricky because we've certainly had people accidentally make views public. And once a view is public, it gets indexed by search engines. It gets found almost inevitably. And once it gets found, there's really no way to unfind it. It's pretty much permanently out there. So it's a very important thing to be able to quickly understand which of your views are public and how the changes you are making affect public access to your site. So although we have made some changes to improve this, we would really like to make it a nice, easy, at a glance, which of my views are public and which are not, so that there's less chances of people accidentally making views public that they did not intend to make public. We already talked about limiting access to some public views for specific domain names. More limiting of actions by view, in particular export profiles, unlike Excel profiles or print profiles, do not have access lists by view. So when I set up a print profile, I say which views that print profile is available in. When I set up an Excel profile, I say which views that Excel profile is available in. But you can't do that for exports. So if you give someone export privileges, they can export pretty much anything, including fields that they wouldn't otherwise have access to in their view. So it really is a security concern that we don't allow better limiting of some of these items by view. We are coming up with more and more situations where we have members who need the ability to edit records in more than one view. As most of you will be aware, you can only manage records in your default view, meaning the one that you go to when you first log into the software. This allows us to have really simple security control over who can edit which records. The problem with this is, as we end up with more specialized views and more multi-member databases where they sort of like to segregate the content a bit, we have very good reasons why we might want to allow one member or one user to be able to edit records in more than just their default view. So this is something that we need to consider in the long run, where when you set up a user, besides the default view they log into, you might be able to check off a certain number of additional views that they would have editing privileges in. It might make it easier for people to organize their information and not necessarily have to have the mega view, which most of our big databases now have to have, that has absolutely everything in it, so that people can do their data management there. And I do expect there could be other things suggested on Monday's session, which is on security. I think it's Monday's session. So I won't go any further into security stuff there. This is further to the better indication of which views are public. The ability to have at-a-glance summary reports of your views or your templates. So an ability to do the just a summary report showing these are my views, these are the ones that are public, these are the notes on that view, this is how many people use these views, this is how many, and so on. So it gives you a real indication of how each of those views are being used at a glance, which tells you if things, helps you to know if things are being used correctly, helps you clean up old views that maybe aren't being used anymore, and so on, and the same with templates. You can really get a better overall sense of how everything fits together if you can get a summary report of everything in your database instead of having to individually go into each one of these to try and figure out what they're for, who's using it, and so on. We do have what we call exclusive control options on both views and templates, which allow you to say that one agency is in control of that view or template. Once you do that, no other agency, even a super user, well, of course a super user from those other agencies, don't even see that those views or templates exist. So we'd like to change that slightly so that all the super users can at least see all the views and templates in the database, even if they can't modify or edit them. So they would be able to get them in their at-a-glance summary report. They would be able to see them in the list, but wouldn't actually be able to go in and make modifications. I think for the overall management of the database, it's important that all the super users in the database understand what's being done, especially in terms of maintaining security and so on. For anyone to not have a full picture of the type of access that's going on and what views are available, it is not a good idea. So that's the end of my list. I'm going to open up discussions now, which means I'm muting everyone. If you do not, oh, and I have a question from Sharon. Sorry, I didn't notice that. Oh, no, sorry, I've already cleared that. If you do not wish to speak, I do suggest remuting yourself so that it doesn't cause line noise. Okay, so I'm unmuting everyone now.
Okay, so that's fantastic. Oh, yeah, there is some line noise there for sure. So that's really fantastic, Kate. I think this is the kind of stuff that, like you say, is of keen interest to the membership, and will actually be sort of perhaps the most visible thing that members will be able to witness as a change with this first upgrade, since so much of the work that you've been doing is going into sort of the background of the fundamental parts of our software. So, questions. Who has questions? This is pretty exciting stuff, I think. I guess one of my thoughts is, and this is from a membership perspective, but just the idea of doing customizable layouts for other things like that search page that pulls up a table. I've often thought that in the volunteer opportunities module, you can set a permission for the public just to see that, to have that abstract view, right? So you've got the name of the opportunity in sort of an abstract. I often thought that maybe search results could be displayed in the community information side in a way that looks like that, where you see a bit of the abstract of the record, maybe the name of the organization, and perhaps the description or something of that nature in
Yes.
that first go, and then if you want, you can click into it.
Everyone might not know what you're talking about.
Okay,
I should
yeah.
probably put that up.
Okay.
Let me just change my options here. Okay, so this is what we're talking about, which is it's a non-tabular display of search results, and certainly that's something that we can look at for the community information side. Doing a non-tabular display means that you won't necessarily be able to do, well, I mean, we could actually do any field you want, and this is a possibility for an option. That's the kind of thing that I wouldn't necessarily say we need a custom layout for. That's just something that we could build in as another option.
Yeah, like a display options or something. Yeah, that's exciting.
Certainly.
Now, Kate, we didn't talk today too much about...
Hey, French volunteer! Sorry.
Ooh, nice. French volunteer opportunities. I like it. Now, we didn't talk too much today. We didn't delve into how these templates will influence the volunteer side of the database. Is there any, just the same sorts of things, so a customizable search page?
Yes.
Nice.
You'll have the same tab thing and the same boxy one as, like, it won't look like this, but it'll be a variation of this.
Okay.
Well, it may look pretty close. So by default, everyone's going to come in looking as close to what it is now, because we don't like to shock people with changes. So when everyone's upgraded, your site is going to look pretty close to what it looks like now, sort of the fewest number of changes that we can manage. And then if you want to change to a tabbed view, like this one, you would have the setup option to be able to do that. And that includes on the volunteer side. So in the same way that we have put each of these into their own tabs on community information, you would be able to do that on the volunteer side. You will also be able to get that left menu to add, it'll have the new style menu, not this, the same new style menu you see here, the alert text, the ability to do the bottom menu, the new sidebar, all of that is going to be available also on the volunteer side.
Yeah, and I hope that once Volunteer Center members get a sense of where they could go with customizations, that then maybe the ideas will flow for that second round of suggestions, like, ooh, now we like what that looks like, but what about that? So, you know, maybe giving people a visual example of what could be will spark other ideas.
Okay, can I ask a couple questions? It's Sharon.
Yes.
Okay, if you can go back to that old menu that you had, the previous, yeah. Okay, so all of the text that's in the middle there, I know that probably has nothing to do with using templates perhaps, but is there going to be ever a chance to be able to customize that information that's in there?
If you do the new template layout, you would be able to do that sort of, in that you would have the ability to put whatever text you wanted wherever you wanted in the layout.
Yeah. So this is going to be sort of a predefined thing that you can insert into your template if you want to. But if you don't want to, if you made a custom one, you would be able to create your own. Now, this, I'm trying to figure out how to describe this. So this block of text is automatically translated. So if I flip to French, now it all says translate French on it. But my point here is the software manages that text in part because of the need to be able to translate it. But what you would be able to do in the new system is simply not include that entire section on your search form and put something else entirely. And in that way, you can customize it to be anything you want.
Yeah, because where I'm going with this is really based on our target groups here in the region of Peel, because we want to be able to direct students, which we can now, to their student opportunities, but also for newcomers, for older adults, and for corporate groups. So I'm looking at different ways that I can be able to have either buttons or links in the middle of my page that would direct those people.
So, good point, Sharon. So one of the things that could happen here quite easily, which would be a built-in thing, is we could give you the ability to add, quote, menu items here, where you could add additional bullet points. That we can probably do with relative ease.
So, and I think one of the things that you might want to do is if you go to the CIC side.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that we do is if you click on childcare industry search, we've inlined that that form into the page. So we can potentially do the same thing with the first page of the, say, the student search. So if you go and do the student.
So here we have the link here, but it could instead, in the tabbed mode, that could be a tab
that says students.
And when you clicked it, it would inline the search the same way that I click childcare and it brings up the childcare search form. If you clicked it, it could bring up the first page of the student search. You know, there's things you can do, but specifically to address your, is it adding new bullets that you want to do, or do you want to take away what's already there?
Probably adding new bullets. And so what I'm doing in the interim is on the left-hand menu, because on I have a custom menu, is I can put it on that side. And I guess my question is whether or not I invest the time to do that now, or should I be holding off waiting for this new upgrade to be able to utilize what you're changing?
So I have two things to say to that. One is you'll be able to create your own custom search form if that's what you want, and if you want to, understanding that that makes your setup a lot more complicated. But yes, you will be able to do that if you want to, by basically leaving this whole section out and writing your own. Or in a future release, it won't be part of this release because we haven't accounted for it for this release, we can give you the ability to add additional bullets to this section. That's a very reasonable and not complicated enhancement for us to make. It just won't be in the next release because it wasn't accounted for in the next release.
So currently, though, can I change the text? Sorry, I just want to clarify.
So yes, in the next release, you will be able to customize this, but only by basically leaving this whole section out of your custom search page and adding your own instead. So it wouldn't be, you would actually have to sort of start over and create your own section here. Did you follow me?
Yeah.
So because this is all built-in text, and as I say, it's there so that it automatically translates. So it's not as simple as being able to edit it because the software has to control it in order to be able to translate it. So that takes away the ability to customize the text. But at the same time, if you created a fully custom search page layout, which you will be able to do, you could just ditch this whole section, not put it in at all, put in your own text here to be whatever you wanted it to be.
Which you can make, you can have two versions of it with different
and you can do your own translations for that if you did run a French. Chris is right. So it's not, it's just the software wouldn't be doing the translating for you.
Okay. Okay, next question, hopefully this one's not as painful, sorry, is with regards to corporate groups, because we're going to be getting corporate, and I'm thinking from a volunteer center perspective here, as we're getting corporate members to join our center so that we can start sending them different notices about corporate opportunity, or sorry, different volunteer opportunities for employees to engage in. But we wanted to do this based on a log-in because, of course, we don't want to make this available to all corporations. It would only be for our corporate members. Does CIOC have a capacity to allow a log-in in order to access certain areas other than what we use for data management?
So the answer is you can give them a login to your software if you want. That's a read-only login. That's up to you.
Oh, okay.
I mean, there certainly on the community information side, that's pretty common for people to give leased logins. Usually they make people pay for it into their database that are read-only. It gives them access to advanced search and potentially other kinds of statistics, maybe print tools, things like that.
Because I want to create a view just for corporations, right, based on views, and then I can allow them to have a login just to see their view based on parameters that I provide them.
Yeah, absolutely, you can do that. You can do that right now if you want to.
I'll have to figure that out. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Sorry. Leslie's here with us, and she has a question. Oh, I have to come downstairs. She's listening from upstairs.
Following along on what Sharon had asked. Sharon's always makes my brain cells start spinning. I hope in a good way. Anyway, it's related to the whole question of views for the volunteer module.
Yes.
And for example, having a series of volunteer opportunities that are all tagged with suitable for
Yes,
seniors.
that's
tagged
done with that. So the way that I will take the time, I know it's not a training call, but I will take the time. I have to do it from the test site because my setup areas are broken. But I will take the time to show you quickly how that management happens in the volunteer software. I can't get into huge detail, but I will do my best to give you a hint.
Right?
No. This has been there for a long time. Okay, so in the existing software, the way that you manage which records are in a view in the volunteer is under volunteer, you go to communities, which is probably why it's so misleading. And here is what you're doing. You're doing volunteer community sets and volunteer opportunity community set management. So let's say I want a new community set that I will call corporate view number 1. Very exciting. And and the area served is a required field. Well, thanks. And the area served is my backyard, whatever. Okay. So here I've created a community set that can now be used as the basis for a view. Okay. Right now, no views use this community set, and there are no records in this community set. Okay. If I go to update it, if I go to community set management, I can edit the records that are in this view. So here I am I'm looking for things to add into my corporate view. Let's say for this particular corporate view, they only care about things in Kingston, Frontenac, whatever. I can pick here. It doesn't matter. I don't know what I have here. I'll do Dundas, Flamborough, Burlington, to pick some things that actually have records in them. And I'm looking for opportunities to add. I don't want to show expired opportunities. Okay, so then I can pick the specific entries that I want to show in this corporate view. So I can just randomly pick some and add them to corporate view number 1. Okay, so now there are 7 opportunities in this corporate view and 50 that are not in this corporate view. Okay, and I can continue that management as I wish. So I've individually selected the ones that I want to show up there.
Can you use criteria other than geography, like the suitable for field?
Not at the moment. No.
It seems to me that would be one of the things that would make it useful for the things like the seniors or the newcomers or the students.
Absolutely.
I think the issue here is that the community set here, don't think of it as in this is a location.
Yeah, the name is misleading. It was originally designed to allow people from different areas to coexist in the same database. But
think of it like a publication code.
Just like a pub
it's
code.
more the gathering of the records.
Yes, and we don't have a good, we don't necessarily have a good tool.
But you can tell in the record which community sets it belongs to.
Yeah. So while you're editing the record,
but there should be a bulk tool for it.
Yes.
While you're editing the record, you can say which views you want it to show up in. So this is a tool for adding it, but also while you manage the records, you also have the opportunity at that time to add it to the views that you want. Unfortunately, we don't have another tool, for doing a search, add it to a community set. I don't believe we have a tool like that. Maybe we do. Honestly, I'm not even sure. Let me look.
So where would you assign the view then? Because I'm just looking hypothetically at my volunteer opportunity I have in my database, and I don't see anywhere that it says to show in this view.
Well, you don't have any other community sets set up. So once you've set up other community sets, then when you go to view management.
Okay, so here's going to be a real stupid question of the day. Is there somewhere that what you have just done, is that somewhere found on the CIOC resources so that I can download it to follow the steps?
It's in the page help.
Page help? Okay.
is. And the page help is somewhat out of date, but it should be enough to give you an indication. But what happens then is when I go into the view management, I can pick the community set. I shouldn't even do public view, but give an indication anyway. So now when I go to modify this view, under community set, I can pick corporate view number 1. And then it would only show the records that I had picked for corporate view number 1.
And then when you want to link off, say, the main page or you log in to go only to a particular view, it would actually only access the records you had tagged up with it. It's almost like a publication code.
It's just like a publication code. For anyone who's familiar with the CIC software, community sets are the publication code of the volunteer software.
Yeah, and the only thing that's really missing from a functional standpoint is the capacity to do a search.
Yeah.
And then add a certain communication.
So what happens then is once I've set up more than one community set, when I go to manage those records, I don't know where. Any of these, there we go. Test record, yay. So when I go to manage this record now, do you see these community sets? I could say, I want this record to be in corporate view number 1. And then it would, when I update this record, it would start showing up in corporate view number 1. Okay, but if you don't have multiple community sets in your database, you aren't going to even see this option.
Yeah, I don't currently, so that's probably why. Okay, great.
All right, so that, I mean, that is a really, really high level, and certainly there's still room for improvement on this, but the capacity is there. It's whether all the management tools that would make this easier are there. Certainly having the ability to do a search and then add it or remove it from a set would be very helpful, which we don't have now. We only have that tool, and I think a better name for it. Originally it was really intended to help people manage by geography, and that's why it's called a community set. It was for cases where you had more than one community in the same database, and they each wanted their own volunteer view for their community. And so we named it according to its use at that time as a community set. But the reality is that if people are going to create these custom views for reasons other than geography, calling it a community set is not a good name. And it doesn't tell you that really you can do much more than just geography.
Yeah, I think conceptually that particular tool, at least maybe I have a mental block with it, but I always had to do a lot of thinking, and probably partly because I didn't use it much, but I found that I would sometimes feel a bit muddled once as I was, because there are sort of communities within communities, right? This community set is comprised of other communities.
No, that's gone.
No, that's
all
gone.
that out.
Then I'm happy.
Yeah, we actually took out some of the worst complicated stuff out of that was driving everybody bonkers. So,
okay, because I haven't been in this tool for a bit, and so that's grand, because that's the one piece that I think made it not something that people would really readily be able to
No, we
use.
took out all of the complexity around that.
Okay,
that was driving everybody ridiculously crazy. You still do set up, if I go to communities, I mean, you still do set up your groupings and your group members. So if I go to corporate view number 1, that's just to set up for your search page, though. So it's not as complicated as it used to be. Basic, yeah. There's some usability improvements that need to happen here, for sure. So the capacity is there, and Kelly's asking, could she set up a view for her March break positions? Absolutely.
Not this year,
not this year.
Probably
Although we also want to look at easier ways for you to make lists of volunteer opportunities without having to set up a whole view for it. That's one of the things that we talked about in terms of both the searching capability and the data structure changes for the volunteer software is the ability to create your own lists. So that you wouldn't necessarily have to build a whole view for it. You could just add a link from your main page that said, you know, search for March break opportunities and a link, which would just be the equivalent of the quick list on this community information side, a way to really easily bring up a topic of records. So that all falls under what we covered when we talked about, you know, general searching improvements that would be built built-in things that you could do, and things that hopefully you'll be able to do really easily and not with the complexity of actually having to set up a whole view for it. But particularly for Sharon's need about having a login in order to access specific information, that is where you want to set up a view. Because in order to tie your login to particular records, you need to have a view to do that. So that's a good case for it, whereas I want to create an easy list of opportunities that fall under a particular category, that's something that we want to build in and make it easy for you to do without having to develop a whole special site for it if you don't want to do that.
And that would be the search for opportunities suitable for seniors. Or
yeah, so well, we talked about having suitability as one of our search options, but there's also just the ability to create a list on the fly, like your March break opportunities, and be able to, you know, quickly provide a link for someone to click on March break opportunities and bring up everything that falls under that category. Or if you have a particular kind of special event coming up and everybody wants to know about the opportunities that are related to that special event, the ability to tag all those records with a special code to bring them up with one click is very beneficial. So,
yeah,
but that all falls under the searching features that we talked about previously. Go ahead.
Oh, I think it's a great idea because certainly in my discussions with various module users, yeah, we all agree that it would be great to sort of have that kind of nimble way of, you know, maybe switching up our front search page to reflect what's going on in the community at that time and what opportunities are linked to it. So yes, I would say for me and from what I've heard from others, a resounding yes. Having those kinds of abilities to group records would be fantastic.
And that's certainly something we covered in our search session and in the data management session, so that's definitely going to be on our wish list. And as for the design stuff, I think once we get it out there and people see what they can and can't do, that will really, I think we'll get a lot of feedback about where else we need to go. I also suspect we're going to have a number of training sessions teaching people how to make their own templates, for those that do want to do something completely customized. And as I said, if people make really great templates, I hope that they'll get shared back to CIOC and become something that we can build in, so that anybody who wants to make use of those templates can.
I already switched them.
So, yeah. Any other questions, comments, info that I can give? I did want to say that Chris is particularly looking, if there's anyone who already does custom templates with, you know, that has some HTML skills and so on, who would like to discuss with him what the new template formatting is going to look like, just to give feedback or a sense, that they can get in touch with us. And potentially we can explain to them how the custom templating works. So not the built-in stuff, but the custom, I want a completely custom work done, how that works. Keeping in mind you have to have good HTML, CSS, JavaScript, etc. skills in order to effectively understand that degree of customization. But for anyone who does and would like to discuss with us what it's going to look like and how it's going to work, and potentially give us any feedback before that goes out, feel free to get in touch with us.
Do you want that to be something that's posted on the board, Chris? Would you want us to post that on the Vol side and the CIC side, that that you are looking for you know, a number of people who might be willing to provide some feedback to you on this development, and that the requirement is that they have a good knowledge of HTML, Java, CSS, whatever you think they need?
Yep, and they would also need to watch this video. I guess we're not going to, I don't
okay.
think we want to regurgitate everything that we've covered today.
Okay.
And it's really, I don't want it to sound like more than it is. It's really just a discussion of the syntax, meaning the, I don't know how to, I hope everyone knows what syntax means, the language with which you design the template. So that's really all that we're talking about discussing, is for those who do completely custom templates where they're providing all their own HTML and so on, that we would show them how we intend that they would be able to create these custom layouts, the language that we'll be using for them to be able to say, you know, put my quick list here, put my, not to that degree, but, you know, where you're saying where everything goes.
Okay.
So that's really where we'd be looking for.
And since it is both CIC and Ball, if there's someone who wants to, who's keen on that discussion, you can post to the message board and post it under the, there's a V3 development group, forum, whatever it's called. So that's probably the right place to put that.
Okay. Okay. So I can do that for you, Chris, and if there's something, I will attempt to capture as accurately as I can what you've just said, but please do watch for it, and if there's a correction or something you think I haven't said about what you're looking for, please do chime in.
Okay.
Okay. Well, it sounds like the members are going to have a lot to absorb on this first pass, and then the discussion can go from there in terms of once we get used to all these new tools and templates, that then we can have a discussion about what's next.
Yep.
Anything else anybody's got to add, say, comment on at all?
Nope.
Okay. Anything else, Kate and Chris?
No, that's our list.
That's great. Well, thank you. I'm really excited by all these changes myself, and I think that this is going to really be such a visible demonstration of the fact that we're moving forward. So thank you so much for all of the work you've already done on all of this. And yeah, we're really excited to see that happen. And thank you, everyone, for your time and coming out before the March break. And I hope you all have a great March break. And we look forward to seeing you, hearing you on one of another of these calls as we sort of wind down to the end of our last few sessions of enhancement discussions.
Great.
All right, thanks very much. Have a
Thanks,
great
everybody.
weekend.
You too.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.